Welcome to the second video in this series, making a 2D swarm shooter with C++. In this one, we're going to put a camera, hopefully on the screen, and then we'll use the keyboard to get it moving around and constrain it also to the map. Now, before we get started with the camera, I want to show you a couple of utility things you can do with the windows in case the base size that we're opening at is too small and you're having to manually resize, or indeed, as is the case with me, it's opening up on the wrong screen all of the time. So let's have a look at both of those. The first one's the really simple one. It's the resizing of the window. Instead of having to do it always by hand if it's too small, you can use the set window size function and then put whatever you want into here, and that'll have the same effect as resizing it by hand, which might save you a bit of time, because I can imagine you're on a higher res monitor than I am for filming and the window is a little bit small. So if you need to do that, that's the function you can use. The other one is related to where the game starts. By default, it actually starts in the middle of your primary monitor. And for me, that's a bit of a pain because I'm recording on my secondary monitor, which is standard HD, in the hope you can actually see something. On the left-hand side of me is the primary monitor, and it keeps opening there, and I keep having to drag it over and cut it out, which is annoying. So I'd like to get it to start in the middle of this monitor here. The way we do that is by actually setting the X and Y position of the window, and that position is based on the top left-hand side of the window. To do that, we need to know for the operating system what the X and Y are of the monitor in question. In my case, the secondary monitor here, so where I'm wiggling the mouse, I need that position at the top left-hand side there, so I can then calculate, knowing my resolution, where I want the X, Y of the window to be. That sounds complicated, but luckily it's pretty straightforward. Raylib has a function called getMonitorPosition, and that gets you the X, Y position of a given monitor. You have to send the number of the monitor in. Now, I know that my secondary monitor is 1 because I've only got 2, and the primary is usually 0, but it does depend a little bit on your OS and how many monitors you have. So you might need to play around a little bit with the number here to get the right one that you need. But this position that's returned here, in my case, will be the X and Y of where the mouse is hovering on the top left-hand corner of the screen here. And then, knowing that I'm filming in standard HD, it's simply a matter of putting the correct buffer in. So for me, that will be the monitor position X plus 320 and Y plus 180, and that should put, hopefully, the game in the middle of the screen. I say game, it's just a map at the moment. So if I run the application, yes, it's appearing in the middle of the screen. Good, excellent. So I'll close that down, close this down. Next thing I'd like to do to prepare actually is get rid of this it works. We don't need that anymore, so let's delete that as well. Okay, and we can start looking then at a camera. To do this, let's put another texture on the screen, and we'll put the player texture. This is not what's going to be our player. It's temporarily here, and I'll actually remove it during this video, but let's call this player text. And we need the player's texture. If we go to assets and then to images, down here you'll find the survivor idle. I'm actually going to just press F2 on that to get hold of the name, and then go back to main.cpp and drop that in here. What we shouldn't forget here is to remove this. So I'll scroll all the way down to the bottom, and then we can unload texture, the player texture. And then we need to draw it on the screen as well. So we'll draw it on top of the background, but under the walls. So we'll get hold of the player texture here, and we can give it a position. So I'm going to give it a position of 400 by 400, I think. So save that and then run. What we should find is we've got the player on the screen, hopefully somewhere. And we do. Now, one thing you might notice is, apart from it being big, is it looks slightly offset. So we've said the position is 400 by 400, yet clearly it's further down in the Y than it's across in the X here. And that's to do with what's known as its pivot point. So when we're positioning things, we position at a specific point somewhere. Yet many game objects we use, for example textures, well, they don't have a specific point. They have an area effectively, so they've got this bounding rectangle here. So when they get positioned, they use what's known as a pivot point to place themselves, and by default that pivot point is the top left-hand side of the texture, which is what we're seeing then with the player sprite. So going back to the game here, if we think about actually where the pivot point is, that's probably around here, and you can see that that more or less is a square. It should in fact be a square with 400 by 400. Now, it's important to know about this pivot point because it's going to affect how we adjust and offset our camera to look at things correctly. Before we do that, I'd like to scale this down a little bit though. So let's close this down and close this down as well. To scale down the texture, if we hover over the draw texture, we can see that in the draw texture, there are no options to do that. Luckily, there are some other draw texture functions. One of them is called Draw Texture Pro, which is here. We'll use that later on. And the one we need now, though, is the X here. So if you do Draw Texture EX and hover here, you'll see we send in the texture, the position, the rotation, the scale, and the tint. So we've got some reds because we need to send a vector 2, which we can immediately initialize with 400 by 400. Then we've got the rotation. Then we have the scale, which I'd like to set to 0.3f because that's what we're going to have for the player later on. So we might as well see what it looks like now. And now if we run the application, we should see we have a much smaller player on the screen. And now it's a little bit easier to see the effect of the pivot, which will be around here. And again, we can see clearly that's a square here. So we can close that down and close down the terminal. Now what I'd like to do is add a camera and actually look at the player texture with the camera. So at the moment, when we look at the screen, we're seeing this yellow box portion of the screen here with our base width and our base height, and our map, of course, is much bigger than what we actually see on the screen. What the camera allows us to do is effectively move this area that is our base width and height, but move that around and then simply render onto the screen whatever this particular area is looking at. So if we put it down here, for example, we'd see a load of black and a bit of wall here. And I'm sure you get the idea. If we put it up here, we would see the top right-hand side of the map. And the way we do this effect is really straightforward. You're about to see, we literally create a camera 2D and we give it a target to look at. At the same time, you can also zoom your camera in and out as well. And you can also, if you want to, even rotate the camera, although we're not going to do either of those two. So let's go back into the code and set up a camera. So inside the code, all we need to do is declare a new camera 2D structure, call that camera, and make the default initialization. If you're not familiar with why we're doing this, so if I right click on the camera and go to definition, in Raylib, we have the camera 2D here. It has an offset and a target, a rotation, and a zoom. Now in C++, when you set up a new structure, it'll fill basically the values in that structure with garbage unless you specify what they are or use the default initialization, which will set them all to 0 here. So it's important to remember to do that. Then we can set the camera's zoom. So we'll say the camera.zoom is going to be equal to 1.0f. And now we can set the camera's target. So what is the camera going to look at? This is a vector 2D, as you've just seen. So we can do camera dots and target is equal to, and we'll set this equal to the player here. And now we've set up our camera, we need to tell Raylib to render onto our canvas texture what the camera is looking at rather than the default top left-hand side of the screen. To do that, we need to tell it that we want to enter a mode to be doing this. And we do that by invoking begin mode 2D and sending in our camera. And it knows now that it should render onto this texture whatever the camera is looking at. Once we're done with rendering whatever the camera is looking at, we can then do end mode 2D. And there's nothing to stop us then rendering other things afterwards onto the texture. And in fact, you'll see us do this with our HUD at the end of this video. For now though, if we run the application, we should see now that we're targeting the player. And indeed we are. It might look a bit weird to you because the player's at the top left-hand side of the screen, but it is targeting the player correctly. What's going on is the camera's target, when it's set, sets its pivot point to be placed there, and its pivot point by default is its top left-hand corner here. So if we target 400 by 400, the top left-hand corner of the camera is placed at 400 by 400, which is where we also place the top left-hand corner of the player sprite, which is why we see this on the screen. To position the camera properly, what we need to do is offset that pivot, and we do that by setting the offset property, which is a vector 2 on the camera. And if we offset it by our base width by 2 and our base height by 2, it'll then move the pivot into here and into here. And what we should see in the middle of the camera is approximately this point here. Remember, the sprite will still be offset a little bit from its center because we haven't offset that at all, so its pivot's based around its top left-hand corner. So let's offset the camera correctly. So back inside our code, we can set the camera offset to be the base width times a half and the base height times a half. And now if we rerun the application, the player will be more or less back in the center of the screen. There we go. Don't worry about the black on the left-hand side here. That's quite right. We're not restricting the camera yet to the edges of the map. So we see a load of emptiness basically on the left-hand side, but we do clearly see in the middle of the screen now that we're targeting things correctly. Now the player sprite looks offset, as I said, because it's pivoted in the top left-hand corner. Don't worry, when we come to set up the player itself, we will offset things so we actually center this properly. But for now, we can see that the targeting and the offset of the camera are working. For the next step, what I'd like to do is actually use the keyboard to move the camera around the map. So let's close this down and close this down. To prepare this, let's remove our player texture because we don't really need it anymore. And I'd like to reduce confusion. So we'll reduce it from here as well. And then down the bottom, we can unload it from here. I'll do Control S to save. So moving the camera around means simply retargeting or updating its target every frame according to, say, a certain speed. So let's say we want to move in the X direction positive, so from left to right across the screen at a speed of, say, 300 pixels a second. How do we do that? Well, each frame we need to update the target, so increment the target's X by 300 pixels per second. In other words, we need to know the amount of time that's elapsed since the previous frame. This is an extremely common operation, and Raylib provides a function to do this, and that's called getFrameTime. And incidentally, in the first video in the series, I did mention that the game loop has two parts, the update part and the drawing part. This is now what's known as the update part, where we do our positioning, our collisions, all of our logic updates before finally drawing everything onto the screen, which is down here. Now, for a little while on this series, the window should close while loop here will become a little bit bigger and unwieldy, but we will clean it up later on. So if you're already thinking that, don't worry, we will separate and clean things out into functions later on. But for now, I'd just like to concentrate on the main sort of functionality. So we want to move our camera from left to right, and we can also move it, let's say, diagonally down the screen as well. So the way we do that is literally by getting hold of the target.x and incrementing that by our delta time, which is the amount of time in seconds elapsed since the previous frame, multiply that then by our speed. So let's say we want to go the target.x and 150 pixels a second, and then we can go in the Y at 150 pixels per second, so down the screen as well. And if we run this, what should happen is the camera should move across and down, but going across a little bit faster, all on its own without us doing anything. And what you will find is when it goes off the edge of the map on the right-hand side, things start to look a little bit weird, but we'll come to that. Let's just run the game for now. And hopefully what we have is a moving camera, and we do. Cool. Excellent. And when we get to the edge here, it should, yes, it's smearing really weirdly, which doesn't look very nice, does it? So I'll explain to you what's going on here before we fix it. So what's happening here is a classic thing that's very easy to miss when you're dealing with rendering in games. So if we take the camera here, imagine this is a canvas that we're drawing on. So literally like an artist's canvas. So we paint on that canvas. Then the next frame, the camera moves, let's say to here, And now we get hold of a canvas and we paint everything on there that we need to render. So in terms of our textures, the wall and stuff like that. Then let's imagine the next frame, it jumps to here. Now keep in mind the previous frame, the very right hand side of our canvas that we're drawing on has walls. Now we jump to here, and in our loop we now render what we see. Well, on the right hand side in the black part here, we actually have nothing to render at all. So we leave that part alone. But that part has already some wall pixels and probably at this width a bit of floor as well. So we won't overdraw that at all, so it'll simply just stay there. There was nothing new to render on top of it. All of this will be rendered new and overwrite what was there before, but the right hand side we end up with these pieces of wall. And that's what's happened with the smearing. The frames that we have are not this big each frame, they're very, very small. So once we get past basically 1 pixel, that then stays all of the time, and we end up with that smearing effect that you saw. Luckily, dealing with this is very straightforward, and we've actually already done it in the previous video. So when we set things up in the first video of this series, you probably noticed we had this clearing of the background before drawing our canvas, and what we've just seen with the smearing was exactly the reason for doing this. In general, you'll always want to clear everything off before re-rendering what you have in case there are gaps in your graphics and things like that. You can end up with some really weird artifacts. And if we scroll up to where we're rendering here, we're not doing any clearing of things before we start rendering on our canvas texture. So the solution is pretty straightforward. After we begin our texture mode with our canvas, we simply clear the background and then we're good to go. So if we press F5 and run this now, what we should find when we go off to the right hand side is we don't get any smearing and we lose the map and go off basically into the ether and the void. So let's have a look. Yep, that looks good to me. Cool, so we can close that down and close that down as well. Let's get ourselves moving around using keys. That's usually a little bit more interesting. And to do this is pretty straightforward. So what we need to do is get the direction we want to move. There are loads of ways of doing this. The way I'm going to do it is say a -1 is left, a +1 is right, 0 is obviously neither, and then a +1 is down and a -1 is up. So I'm going to make a new float, call this movex, and set this equal to, and then we need to get a key. And in this case, it's going to be the key to go to the right. So to get a key, we can use the is key down. And we're looking then for the key D in my case. So I'm going to use the WASD here. And then if that is pressed, we'll return a 1.0. Otherwise, we'll return a 0.0F. And then we'll subtract from this the same thing, but looking to go the other way. So we're looking for the key A in this case, and that will return a 1 if it's pressed, or 0. So in other words, if we press D, MoveX will be 1. If we press A, MoveX will be -1. If we press both, it'll be 0. And if we don't press anything, it'll be 0. Then we can do the same thing for the Y direction as well. In this case, we want this to be the S here to go down the screen and the W to go up the screen. And then we can multiply these by their movements. So if we run the application, we should now be able to use the WASD to move the camera around the screen. So let's have a look. Yes, we can. We're not clamped or anything like that, but we're coming to that, but we can now move the camera, which is pretty cool. So let's close that down and close that down as well. You may notice, if I put these actually at the same speed, if I run this again, you may notice if we move across or move down, the speed is the same, but if we move diagonally, clearly the speed is a little bit quicker. Well, that's simply to do with the vectors that we're moving along. So when we move side to side, let's say we move right, we basically have the multiplier being 1.0. If we move down the screen, the multiplier is a 1.0. But if we go diagonally here, the multiplier is the hypotenuse effectively of this, which is then around 1.4, which is where we go faster diagonally. In fact, there are quite a few games out there, very famously the original Quake game actually, where you have the bunny hopping, so going diagonally because you get much, much more speed. We will deal with this later on when we're actually tracking our player, so we'll make sure that diagonal movement is not faster than up or down or side to side movement. For now, we'll just leave it as it is. And with that done, the next thing is to clamp the camera. Before that though, let's add ourselves a little label to the bottom of the screen that we can use for now to show where the camera is targeted, but you'll see later we'll add quite a bit of debugging info into there so we can keep track of what's going on in our game. Now, when it comes to drawing this, we don't want to draw this on what the camera is rendering because we want it to be there all of the time on the screen. So we're actually going to do it after the end mode 2D here. So going back to the screen here, let's say that the camera at the moment is, for argument's sake, rendering on the right-hand side here. If we take the actual rendered surface itself, then what the camera is rendering, some walls over the right-hand side here, and then we've got the floor in the middle. That's now been rendered. We're then coming out of that camera mode and then re-rendering onto our base screen as a whole. And what we're going to do is draw ourselves a rectangle basically down the bottom here that we're going to shade with a little bit of transparent color, and then we'll add ourselves a label onto the left-hand side. So you're going to see us draw a rectangle with the base width. It'll be at the position of the base height minus some pixels, and then we'll put some text on there. So after the end mode 2D here then, so once we finish rendering what the camera is looking at, we're back to now just rendering on our screen. We're going to draw a rectangle, so you should be able to find draw rectangle there. And then the arguments here, we give 0 for the X position, left-hand side. The Y position will be our base height, so the height of our base height, let's say, minus, let's say, 32 pixels. The width will be our base width, so we go across the entire screen, and then the height of the rectangle will be 32 again. And for the color, we can give it what's known as a color alpha. So that's with some transparency. So we'll specify here the built-in color dark blue, and then 0.0 is transparent, 1.0 fully opaque. So we'll do 0.6F maybe. You can see what that looks like. And I've forgotten a bracket there as well. And if we press F5 to run this, we should see now that we've got a dark rectangle on the bottom of the screen. And we have good. Now what we'll do is we'll put a label on the bottom left-hand side. So we can close that down, close that down. So to draw our label, we can use draw text. And here we need a car pointer for our text, which we don't have yet. We'll come to that. The position in the X, when I was messing around, I found 12 to be about right. Then the position in the Y can be the base height minus around 24, seemed to be okay. And then font size 20, and the color can be lime, so it's a nice sort of light green color. Now we need, though, our text, don't we? So we'll do const car pointer label text. And that will be equal to a built-in function in Raylib called text format, which is a nice convenient way to format text. So here then we can say that we've got our camera, and we'll do %.0f for the position, and then we have the camera.target.x and the camera.target.y. And then last but not least, we can take our label text and drop it into here. So pressing F5 to run this, and we have the camera target position 400 by 400. And now if we move around the keys, we can see that updating live for us, which is going to be very helpful later on, also with other information as well. So let's close that down. And to finish off this video, let's clamp this to the edges of the screen as well. So let's say we want to clamp the camera on the bottom left-hand side of the screen here. What we have to remember is the camera is actually targeted here. So we need to stop the camera going to the left when it hits this target rather than anything on the edge here. And this target here will be our base width, which is this here, divided by 2. Then in terms of the Y position, we're wanting to clamp it at this distance here. That's going to be the height of our map texture, subtracting from there half of our base height to come up to here. And then we'll do a similar thing for each of the corners of the map. So to see us get this working in the code, you'll see us get hold of the map height and the width and use those with the base width and the base height as we need them. So back inside our code then, what we can do is set these up before the camera. So we've got our map width, and then we have our map height, both of which will use the background for this. This is sort of our texture that covers the entire map. And then for a little bit of convenience, we'll work out the half width and also the half height as well. And we can pump these already into here. And we can use these values then to clamp the camera. Now to clamp, we'll need algorithm, which we've already got here because we're using std min here. Okay, good. That's the one we're going to need. And we'll do the clamping after we set the target. So we get the camera.target.x and we clamp that from half of our base width to the map width minus half of our base width. So we're clamping from half of our base width up to the map width minus half of our base width. So the camera effective is clamped from there to there, more or less, if I would draw it accurately anyway. And then for the Y, we clamp half height to map height minus half the height. And what we should find out is if we run the application, we should not be able to go beyond the boundaries of the map. And when we first load it, we're clamped, and indeed we are. Cool, that seems to be working pretty well. And our position also down the bottom, or the target, should I say, of the camera down the bottom on the label also shows the clamping in action as well. Excellent, good. So I'll close that down and close down the terminal. And I think that's a good place to stop this particular video. We've done quite a lot there. In the next video, what we're going to do is turn our attention to actually building the proper entities in our game. We're going to start building our transform component, our movement component, and the basics of our player class as well. So thanks very much for watching this one, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.